Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Community Podcast. I'm Roy Bernheim. I'm one of the co-founders of Decommerce, and I'm here to bring you the inside scoop of everything brands, community, and innovation. And I'm excited today to have Anabella Lamarche here. She's the founder of Bouche and has a really interesting founder story. Really excited to hear more about it. Welcome, Anabella, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Roy. I am so happy to be here. And yeah, as you said, I'm Anabella Lamarche. I am the founder of Bouche, a health and wellness brand hoping to help people find simple and effective solutions. And as you mentioned, a little bit about me and how I came into this space. I was doing my master's degree, a teacher's assistant, and an exhaustive corporate job. I almost ended up in the hospital due to severe exhaustion. But I had no idea why, because I thought I was working out, I was eating healthy, I was, to me, the epitome of health, but there just wasn't enough hours in the day and I wasn't getting the quality sleep I needed. And this was the big kind of turning point for me to really value sleep and to listen to my body more effectively. But as I mentioned, I already felt I was doing everything I can. So I knew the solution for me had to be something that I could easily incorporate into my day. And that's where I really want to try and help people like me. You know, you don't have enough time in the day. How can I give you something that's going to make your life better without making any compromises? And that's how we started Bouche.
Wow. And when you say we, I'd love to know a bit more about that. Where was this a one person realization where you woke up one morning, or what was that process like?
Yeah, so, well, I think when I ended up in the hospital, I had a community of people. I had my friends and family saying, we know you can do it all, but maybe you need to slow down. Maybe you need to take a step. And without that community of individuals really helping me and telling me it's okay, take a break, take care of yourself, I couldn't have done it without everyone around me. So I think I'm always thinking of not just me, but the people who have supported me through everything I'm doing. But particularly with mouth taping, I used to grind my teeth at night. And as I said, I was really trying to improve my sleep. And my fiance actually said, I read a research paper on mouth taping. I think this is going to stop your teeth grinding and it's going to change your life. And at first I was like, absolutely not. I'm not taping my mouth. You can do whatever you want. And so he did. And he started taping his mouth. And I started seeing the benefits he was having. He stopped snoring. He was sleeping better. He had more energy. And so then reluctantly, when you see the proof is in the pudding, you kind of take it on. So I was happy to start trying it. And over time, it really made a big difference for me. And then I wanted to make the best mouth tape on the market.
So tell me about how you went from saying no, not even trying it, the product, let's say, mouth taping at the time, to making it like this is what you do now as your company, as your baby. That's a
Yeah.
big step. How did that go?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think, and this is important with like any brand and selling to consumers now, right? I think of me. I think of that resistant individual. I think that's a really good place to start. So what did I do to feel comfortable with it? I read the research, right? I read the book. There's incredible books on this and not just recent literature. I think people think this is a viral new phenomenon. There are books from 100 years ago. There's books 50 years ago, Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life, Breath by James Nestor, Jaws. All of these books look into how important nasal breathing is for human beings, that we are nasal breathers as human beings, that humans are the worst breathers out of all animals in the animal kingdom, they say. And for certain things in our society have led us to become more mouth breathers. And this actually has huge results on our health. It can impact your blood pressure. It can impact your heart. It can impact your lungs. It can impact your brain. So reading these books and this vast, extensive literature that actually was talking about the connection, why we stopped nasal breathing or why often people start mouth breathing, understanding really the building blocks of this final solution I was trying was critical for me to understand why would I use this, right? And why am I using this? And once I understood the research, the literature, and how even we got to the place where, why am I taping my mouth? Then it was really easy for me to start understanding, okay, if I'm going to do this, how do I make this experience the best it can? How do I feel safe? what makes me excited about using it. And so that's really what I want to incorporate in our brand, because I wasn't finding that in the competitors.
And I guess we have a huge spectrum of people that have never heard of this. That was you basically before your fiance came around with this idea versus people that do this already every day, or at least are very knowledgeable about the space. How do you think about growing your brand? Like, how do you think about your audiences and where you see the best traction and results?
So the best traction, of course, is going to be people who already know about mouth taping, right? Doctors, chiropractors. Within the first week of launching, the amount of healthcare professionals who reached out and said, I've tried to recommend this to my clients, but they're terrified. And so they said, I would love a product because that helps add credibility, right? They were saying, use medical tape, use these other alternatives, but that added to the feeling of consumers of not being sure, right? And not feeling confident and not feeling like this is an intended purpose, right? So really the traction, the easy, the low hanging fruit is the people who understand why to do it, right? And like I said in my origin story, once I understood why, it was really easy to start doing it and to feel good about doing it every night, because that's important when you're using a product. Yeah, so anyone who knows about it, those are the easy fruit to pick. And then the exciting part is education on for people who don't know about it, right? And how to at least just slowly start getting their mind thinking about it and start cueing them into maybe what they're experiencing might not be normal.
That's interesting. So let's talk a bit more about this group that knows a bit more about this already. And I guess one word that is very popular at the moment, and we see it trending in a lot of places, biohacking.
Yes.
What's your take on this, and how do you see yourself, let's say, around this topic?
Yeah, so I would identify as a biohacker, or definitely, before going on this journey, I would say I'm a biohacker, because I really could see when I chose to do certain things with my body, I felt the best. And it wasn't
Mhm.
always these elaborate solutions. Usually the ones that were most effective were the simplest. So I think biohacking now gets maybe, or even in my own eyes, could get this kind of cliche label, because we think of, the red light, they're doing their red light machine while they're doing their mouth taping, while they're, I don't know, on a vibrational pad, let's say. And you're like, that seems too much. And is that really the best way for your health? And I think that's why I always want to emphasize with Bouche is why I picked this product as our first product. I wanted it to be simple. I wanted it to connect back to your body. I wanted you to optimize your own body and there not be anything else that you wouldn't understand. Once you understood why you should use it, you're helping yourself switch how you're breathing and how you should be breathing optimally. Nothing else, with all these other biohacking tools, I think there can be a lot of complexity, and that kind of scares people away, right? So biohacking, I think it's amazing. I think what made me want to identify as a biohacker was I'm interested in learning my body. I'm interested in trying the best tools and optimizing my health in the best ways I can, right? That doesn't mean just using every product under the sun. So I think there's a balance. And I think hopefully the new age of biohacking will be full circle, getting back to the basics. And I think we're seeing that in even Toronto. Some of the biggest, wellness companies starting are like these bathhouses, and getting back to like sauna and ice baths, which people think is such also a new age like phenomenon or viral activity that people are doing. But I laugh about it with my parents. They're like, we used to always sauna in the gym and jump in the pool, right? So I think there's new branding on these things, but I really hope the core of biohacking goes back to the basic rooted principles of science and listening to your body, what works best for you and what makes you feel the best.
That's super interesting. And given you identify as a biohacker, at least partially, what's that community like? Is there a community, or is it just completely dispersed people and they do their own thing? How do you describe that?
It's a huge community. And I think, there's so many companies who have done this so well. Whoop is one of them, right? Like Whoop, for instance, what they're doing that's so amazing with their community is everything's visual, right? It's not just wearing the watch. It's the stats you get after, the look at my sleep score. It's the challenge between your friends who can improve their sleep score to be the best, who can improve their recovery to be the best. And to have those visuals, to have that personal data, not just, adding that analytical aspect. That's what in the past we couldn't do. Now we can really have quantifiable data, so to have that biohacking community who wants to be their healthiest self. We're still simple humans. We love gamification. We love competing. And so I think the biohacking community, it's about encouraging each other. It's about challenging each other. It's about finding new ways to be even healthier. And I think there's a lot of great companies that are doing that. And that allows you to share what you'll see they're doing is share those wins. And I think like Strava as well, the best athletes want to compare their routes and their times, and that's challenging them to be better. So I think that biohacking community, the drive to be better, is core in that. And that makes people also excited to try new products, right?
Yeah. And where would you say, I mean, you mentioned two platforms already. Let's say as a biohacker community, where do you see this community live? I don't mean physically, like geographically live, but where do you hang out?
I think again, the definition of type of biohacker could be different, but I would say in Canada for specifically, go to the mountains, right? All of the biohacker friends who just want to be running the mountains in the weekend or, mountain biking and skiing, they have flocked there. It's clear they're out of the city. They have geographically moved. So I think there are, of course, when this really is your identity, when this really is your values, when you want to find a way to be outside in nature and move your body as much as possible, I think that ultimately does lead to geographic dispersion. But to your question, where do these live? I think a lot of it, as anyone, like on social media, on TikTok, you can see all these communities of wellness individuals and even people who maybe aren't biohackers themselves, but are curious. They're creating huge communities, biohacker curious individuals who want to be a part of these communities, but maybe wouldn't say they self-identify as that. So I think that social media has been a great avenue for getting more people intrigued in biohacking in general and caring about their health.
And so those would be somebody on social media. So let's say on an Instagram or somewhere like that, where they would share with their audiences and interact with audiences. Do you see anywhere in that space, because especially we're talking about health data, we're talking about personal data, any kind of concern of sharing that or not really at this point?
I think there is always concerns in general in our new society where things are growing faster than people understand how they work, right? So I think full stop, there's always going to be risk there. That being said, I am the first to say, use my data. I want to open my phone and you be like, was this what you were going to search for? Yes, thank you. Please, to me, for my personal life, for who I am and what I'm doing, I'm okay with that. I understand how it works and I'm okay with my data being used. I think going forward, talking to other individuals, is the risk that something you don't want to be shared, or is the risk that someone's going to use this against you? And I think that's, two different avenues. I would love to feel that people could share freely. And it's really not about the individual sharing. It's data as a, world. Oh, this is actually everyone's data and we can look at this anonymously and get really great insights or feel that we're a part of a community that we maybe didn't even know existed because our data is like all these other people. I think that would be a great North Star. I think, like we said, when we don't know how things are working or how people might use things and how those are coming back to us, that can be where it's a risky line.
And I'd love to understand a bit more also how you think about data and more specifically in terms of feedback loops, right? So when you were developing product, for example, or as you're developing your strategies, how do you think in terms of feedback loops and where do you get that feedback from?
So our feedback loops, I want to get as much feedback as possible. And I know that can be an issue when you're maybe at a larger worldwide scale. And we were speaking about that originally, like how do you ensure you're listening to the right data? But I think in your first year of any business, get feedback from everywhere, remove all ego from it, ask anyone who will give you your thoughts about it, because in the future, you might be trying to understand how that person is thinking, why they're not doing what you're thinking. And I think the more you can listen, the more you can remove yourself and your product or your goals from what people are saying and really understand what they're saying and why they're saying it, it's the most important thing. So where do I get feedback from? I get it from anyone who will talk to me around me physically. I will get feedback from all of our customers. I give our biggest discount of the year to people who will give me a review, not just because I want the review to increase conversion rates, which of course is great as well, but because I actually want to understand why you love it, why you don't love it. That's the only way you already purchased from me. You are already willing to connect with me. So I think that's like a really powerful individual that you should tap into and try and understand as much as you can and make them feel good about supporting you and giving you those insights. And even if you can't action what they want right away, if you ever do choose to action it, that person will be endlessly grateful. One. And if you didn't choose to action it, at least you had it raised and you're rigorous enough to know the reasons why you're not actioning it. So you feel good about that as well.
So you're saying that you're really, listening and getting feedback from offline and online. And what did you learn from this feedback over the past couple of months? And also what's interesting is to know what was surprising to you, something you really learned just from that feedback.
Yeah. So offline, like you said, online, like you said, and also just one thing I didn't mention as well is like other competitors, keeping a really close eye to what customers are saying about their product, what customers aren't loving, what they wish these other brands were doing. That's one of the great places to be as a young brand. You have to have your brand identity and you have to stay true to who you are, but you already have, even if it's not your own people, millions of people talking about this subject. So how can you learn from anyone is, I think, just a great mindset for any business owner to take on. But what was the most kind of surprising feedback to me? And I would say the most surprising feedback to me, and maybe it wouldn't be surprising to someone else, but simply that people have a hard time doing something every day. It's really made me tune in to building new habits for people are extremely difficult. People say, I've been trying to get my 10,000 steps for years, and I only do that because I have a watch and that took me X amount of time to do, right? And so I think when you don't have, as a consumer, the personal feedback loop, or, why Duolingo is such an incredible company, they've gamified and they make you feel good when you're doing good, and they make you feel bad when you're missing out or you're not doing what you should.
That's super interesting. And I find it fascinating, the whole, creating new habits or letting go of old habits part. And it's also something that, we might be even chatting about offline, where we can gamify that experience, I think, quite nicely to form that habit. Because, I think you're right. I know it for myself as well, right? Just something makes a lot of sense and I might do it for a while and then it kind of tethers off. How do you do it at the moment? How do you track it for people or help them change their habits?
Yeah, so really creating a mindful messaging system, so emails at this point and text that follow up from you've received your package, something standard, what you can expect your first night. What now you've been doing it for 3 days, this is what science shows is happening in your body. 1 week, be excited, now you've unlocked this. Really trying to give that education, not think we have the customer, they know, really helping them, holding their hand along that first month, because we found if you do the first month, you're hooked. So how do we make that first month? How do we make you feel good about your decision? How do we get you keep on doing it? And really well-tailored educational emails been the secret for us.
That's super interesting. And I'm curious to also see how this develops further and how people are changing their habits with your product. And what is it that excites you on this journey now looking forward as well? And when you look into the future, what are things that keep you going and energize you?
I think the opportunity to help people feel their best is what drives me, period, right? Mouth tape is just a product. The brand and the community around that is so much more, So what gets me excited is continuously helping people feel their best without making it too complicated, right? And using science-backed research. So I think there's so much opportunity there, even with forming habits, for instance, right? throughout this whole process. I've like looked at the best habit apps, and there's millions of downloads, tons of people want these tools, but there's still a gap for why can't everyone, if they know what to do, be doing the best things for themselves. And so I think one part of that is making really good, really high quality products that are simple. But the other part of that is everything you're talking about: the community, the ethos, the education, the being a part of that world and knowing that's possible and continuing to dig deep in that and enriching everyone's lives through that. That's what's really excited to me. And I feel like with Bouche, we've really aligned to help push that forward. And so that's what I'm most excited about.
That's really exciting. And really, I love how you see this as this vision of making people's lives better in a very simple way and basically helping people to get there as well along the way. So it's not just like, here's the product, buy it, but it's also supporting them along the way as they get better.
Exactly.
Well, Anabella, thank you so much for sharing your passion and all your insights of how you've been building Bouche so far. Really, I'm so excited for what you're building and to also now be able to see and follow how you grow this movement.
Thank you so much, Roy. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, and chat very soon.
All right. Bye.